You are born, not that you were consulted on the matter, in the year of our Lord 1515, in the damp, smoky hinterlands of the Palace of Placentia. You are a creature of the royal court's vast, stinking ecosystem, spawned in the shadow of power, but destined never to touch it. Your first sensation is not a mother's gentle touch, but the pervasive scent of wood smoke, roasting meat, and wet wool. Your father is a man named Thomas, though you will only ever think of him as a silhouette against a fire, a pair of sweat-glistened arms endlessly turning a spit that bears a carcass heavier than he is. His lungs are a roadmap of every feast he's ever cooked, etched in soot. Your mother is a laundress, a woman whose hands are perpetually raw, perpetually bleeding, sacrificed to the altar of lie and impossibly stained linens. They are cogs in a great, indifferent machine, and you are their unfortunate issue. Your fate is inherited, a genetic defect passed down like weak eyes or a bad back. You are to be a servant. This isn't a profession. It's a diagnosis. The honor of serving His Majesty, King Henry, is spoken of in hushed, reverent tones, a gift from God Himself. But you learn the truth early. Your most vivid childhood memory is not of play, but of watching the leftovers from a royal banquet being scraped into buckets for the dogs. A swan, its feathers meticulously reattached, now mangled and torn. A mountain of jellied eels shimmering under the torchlight like a heap of drowned jewels. Even in its ruin, it is the most magnificent thing you have ever seen. And in that moment, you understand. This food is a miracle, and your sole purpose, the entire arc of your squalid little life, will be to stand between it and the man who gets to eat it. You are not to enjoy it. You are to intercept its doom. Your childhood, such as it is, ends at 10. You are taken from the relative freedom of the outer yards and plunged into the belly of the beast, the great kitchen. It is a cavern of shouted orders, hissing fats, and the metallic clang of industry. This is your crucible, your abusive university. Your tutor is the master of the household, a man with a face like a clenched fist and no kindness in him. Your education begins. This is not about gastronomy. It's a brutal recalibration of your senses. You are forced to sip souring wine day after day until you can identify the precise moment it turns from passable to vinegar. You are made to eat bread dusted with harmless green mold, the master proclaiming it will fortify your constitution, when in reality, it's just to teach you the texture of decay. Your days are a litany of sensory abuse. You are blindfolded and commanded to identify dozens of herbs by scent alone, from common rosemary to the subtle, almond-like whisper of cherry laurel, which the master explains is a cousin to poison. One afternoon you fail. You mistake the scent, declaring a sprig of poison hemlock to be wild parsley. The punishment is immediate and clarifying. The master backhands you across the face, the crack of it echoing off the stone walls. As your ears ring, he holds the plant under your nose and snarls. Parsley makes the soup taste nice. This makes the noble lord's bowels dissolve. If you wish to live past 20, you will learn the difference. The lesson is clear. Your survival depends on your paranoia. This is how they rewire you. Food ceases to be sustenance. It is no longer for pleasure or hunger. It becomes a language of threat, a text to be scrutinized for any hint of malice. Your childhood innocence, your simple joy in a warm piece of bread, is systematically dismantled and replaced with a cold, calculating vigilance. You are not a boy anymore. You are becoming a tool. There is, of course, a story they tell about you. A gilded lie whispered in the court. You are the royal shield, the loyal palate, the selfless guardian who risks his own life with every bite to protect the divine body of the king. You are a silent, noble sentinel in the endless war against assassins and schemers. It's a lovely little tale, perfect for a ballad or a tapestry. The reality is a biological hell. The truth of your daily existence is a symphony of filth and misery. You begin your day by rinsing your mouth with cheap wine, not for pleasure, but because the water from the castle well is a gamble you're not willing to take. You wear the same woolen tunic for a week, and its fabric is a greasy archive of every dish you've ever wiped your hands on. The rushes on the great hall's floor, so picturesque to the poets, are a compressed mat of rotting food, animal droppings, and spilled ale. The stench is your constant companion. And the food. My God, the food. The myth is you dine like a king. The reality is you are a human disposal unit for fear. You don't eat a meal. You process a threat. A typical feast requires you to sample 30, sometimes 40, individual dishes. A sliver of greasy swan, a spoonful of lamprey stew, a bite of venison drenched in a cloying spice sauce, a nibble of a sugary marzipan castle. Your stomach, accustomed to the simple peasant fare of your youth, is in a state of perpetual rebellion. You are plagued by indigestion, by trapped wind that bloats your belly, by a constant, low-grade nausea. The most immediate threat to your life isn't the rare drop of arsenic, but the far more common dose of bacteria from a side of beef that sat in the sun for too long. You are the first line of defense, not just against poison, but against simple, mundane, and utterly lethal incompetence. You drift through your teens and into your 20s in this state of managed decay, a ghost at the feast. Then comes the moment your grim purpose sharpens to a point. It is the year 1527. The air in London is thick with intrigue. The king's great matter of his divorce hangs over the court like a shroud, and a delegation of French ambassadors has arrived to negotiate, to smile with their teeth while their eyes calculate. The stakes are a fragile peace with France, and the great hall is a theater of power, every dish a declaration of English magnificence. You are a decade into your service, your senses honed to a razor's edge by fear and repetition. The procession of food is endless, a river of roasted meats and shimmering jellies. Then comes the centerpiece, a great venison pie, sculpted into the shape of a hunting hound, its pastry eyes gleaming. As the sewer, the high-ranking servant who presents the dishes, lifts his knife, you perform your ritual. A small piece of the crust, a morsel of the rich, dark meat. You chew slowly, your entire consciousness focused in your mouth. The spices are heavy, clove, mace, pepper, a culinary smokescreen. But beneath it, you detect something else. It is not a taste, precisely. It is the memory of a taste, a faint, unnatural bitterness, a whisper of metal where there should be none. It is the ghost of an almond, but a cruel, twisted one. You have no proof, only the frantic alarm bells of your conditioned palate. To interrupt this ceremony is a monumental breach of protocol, an insult to the king's kitchen and his French guests. But the master's long-ago slap still rings in your ear. You take a half step forward and speak a single, quiet word to the sewer. No. The man freezes, his knife hovering over the pie. He has seen you do this 100 times, but never have you said that word. A ripple of silence spreads from the high table. The Cardinal, Wolsey himself, leans forward, his dark eyes fixed on you. The protocol, ancient and grim, is invoked. A steward is dispatched and returns not with a fresh plate, but with a yapping terrier on a leash. A chunk of the pie is cut and placed on the floor. The dog, starved and eager, devours it. For a moment, nothing. The court holds its breath. Then, the terrier stiffens. It lets out a choked yelp, its legs kicking spasmodically. A thin line of foam appears on its lips. It convulses once, twice, and then lies still. A collective gasp fills the hall. The French ambassadors stare, their faces pale. Cardinal Wolsey looks down the length of the hall, not at the dead dog, not at the terrified sewer, but directly at you. He doesn't smile. He simply gives a slow, deliberate nod. It is the most terrifying and exhilarating moment of your life. You have done it. You have stared into the abyss on the king's behalf and proven its existence. You are a legend, for all the good it will do you. Your newfound fame is a peculiar kind of prison. You are not rewarded with land or title. You are rewarded with a more intense scrutiny, a heavier burden. You are the king's famous instrument, the man with the supernatural palate, and now you must be perfect, every time. Your daily grind becomes even more soul-crushing. You wake in the dark, your first thought not of the day ahead, but of the potential death it holds. You walk to the kitchens, the same stone corridors, the same overwhelming smells. You perform the ritual tasting, your every bite now watched by the master of the household, by the cooks, by the stewards. The monotony is punctuated by moments of pure social terror. At one meal, a visiting duke, impatient for his food, watches you slowly chewing a piece of quail. "Be quick, man," he sneers, his voice carrying across the table. Or is the great taster afraid of a little bird? The table titters with laughter. You are a joke to them, a necessary, but ultimately contemptible, piece of human machinery. You are defined by a single, grotesque function. You watch the life of the court swirl around you, the flirtations, the plots, the whispered jokes, the rise and fall of great men, but you are fundamentally separate from it. You are not permitted to marry without the master's consent, for a wife could be a vector for poison. You are not permitted to leave the palace grounds without an escort. The law of the household is absolute. To disobey is not merely to be fired. It is to be branded a deserter, a potential traitor. The ultimate cruelty, the final turn of the screw, arrives in the form of a boy. He is your younger cousin, barely 12, with wide, terrified eyes. He has been brought from your village to begin his service. The master of the household, in a gesture of what he likely considers high praise, assigns the boy to you. You will teach him, he commands. He will learn the craft from our finest practitioner. And so you are forced to become the agent of another's damnation. You look into this child's face, and you see your own reflection from 15 years ago. You make him sip the sour wine. You force him to smell the foul herbs. You become the master, the tormentor, the architect of his fear. The vicious cycle has closed its jaws around you, and you are now a willing, miserable participant in its perpetuation. The event that finally breaks you has nothing to do with kings or assassins. It is a pathetic, sordid affair born of petty grievance. The year is 1531. The king has broken with Rome, and the court is a nest of vipers. But your downfall comes from the servants' hall. A sous chef, a bitter man named John, feels he was unjustly passed over for a promotion. He decides to enact a small, humiliating revenge on the Bishop of Rochester's household, who are visiting the palace. His plan is not murder, but misery. He intends to taint a large pot of breakfast porridge with a common purgative, ensuring the bishop's staff spends their morning in agonizing, embarrassing distress. He miscalculates. In his haste, he uses the wrong route, a far more potent and toxic variety. For you, it is just another Tuesday. The kitchens are in their usual state of controlled chaos, preparing for the main court's breakfast. The staff porridge is an afterthought, a mass-produced slop you must check as part of the blanket protocol. You are distracted, thinking about the king's sturgeon, which smells slightly off. You take a spoonful of the porridge. It is bland, unremarkable. You taste nothing but oats and water. You nod. It passes. You move on. An hour later, the screams begin. They emanate from the servants' quarters, a sound of pure agony. You rush to see a scene from a nightmare. Men and women, people you have known for years, are on the floor, writhing, vomiting, their faces contorted in pain. The bishop's own secretary, a kind, elderly man who had shown you a drawing by his grandchild only the day before, is gasping for breath, a terrifying blue shade creeping across his lips. And you know with a certainty that freezes the blood in your veins. You tasted it. It passed through you, inert and harmless in a single spoonful, but in a full bowl, it was death. You were the gatekeeper. You were the final, infallible task. And the poison slipped by you, not in a gilded pie meant for a king, but in a humble bowl of gruel meant for a footman. The hero who saved the French delegation is now the idiot who poisoned the help. Your reputation, your entire purpose, evaporates in an instant. The aftermath is not a formal punishment. It is a quiet, creeping erosion of the self. You are not flogged or imprisoned. You are simply contaminated. The official investigation absolves you of intent. The cook confessed before he was dragged to the gallows, but the damage is done. Your self-perception is shattered. The horror moves inward, colonizing your mind. Every meal becomes an ordeal of a different kind. Before, you feared the poison. Now, you fear your own incompetence. Was that slightly bitter taste in the wine a threat, or just a cheap vintage? Is the tingle on your tongue from the spices, or is it the first caress of nightshade? You begin to doubt your one and only skill. Your own consciousness becomes the prison. The haunting comes at night. You dream of the bishop's secretary, his blue face, his gasping mouth. You see the faces of the 2 scullery maids who also died, their accusing eyes following you through a kitchen that twists into a labyrinth. To silence the noise in your head, you find a new anesthetic, a squalid little tavern in the stews of Southwark, far from the palace walls. The ale there's cheap, thick, and blessedly potent. It numbs your palate, and for a few blissful hours, smothers your memories. The drinking starts as a refuge, but quickly becomes a necessity. You begin showing up to your duties smelling of sour ale, your hands possessing a slight, but noticeable tremor. The master of the household eyes you with contempt. Your legendary instrument, the palate that saved an international treaty, is being systematically destroyed by swill. You are a food taster who has become terrified of food, seeking solace in a drink that only dulls the very senses you need to survive. The paranoia that was once a professional tool now becomes a personal cancer, eating you alive from the inside out. Every whisper in the kitchen is about you. Every sideways glance is an accusation. You are alone, adrift in a sea of suspicion of your own making. Your end, when it comes, is a masterpiece of the mundane. You are not the centerpiece of a dramatic poisoning plot. You do not heroically throw yourself in front of the king to intercept a poisoned dart. You are dismissed. Your tremor has become too pronounced, your fear too palpable. You are no longer a reliable instrument. You are a liability. Cast out from the only world you have ever known, you drift into the grimy recesses of London. The year is 1535. You find your final residence in a flophouse in Southwark, a room that is little more than a space on a filthy floor shared with other ghosts of fortune. The irony is so thick you could choke on it. After a lifetime spent sampling the richest foods in the kingdom, you are now starving. Your final illness is not rare or exotic. It is a common lung infection, a feverish ague born of damp, cold, and malnutrition. It settles deep in your chest, the same chest that once housed the lungs of a royal servant. Your final moments are a pathetic, fevered delirium. You lie on a bed of dirty straw, the taste of blood and sickness thick in your mouth. In your clouded mind, you confuse it with the metallic tang of arsenic you were trained to detect. You are tasting your own death, the one poison you were never trained to identify because it comes for everyone. You die alone. There is no one to mark your passing. Your body is discovered 2 days later, not by a grieving loved one, but by the landlord, a man whose only concern is the few pennies of rent you owe him. Your name is not recorded. You are buried in a potter's field, a nameless corpse in a city full of them. Back at the palace, your replacement, another poor boy with frightened eyes, was already at his post before your body was called. You are forgotten, utterly and completely. And that should be the end of it. But then, a strange thing happens. Time passes. Decades, then centuries. The bloody, terrifying Tudor court recedes into the mists of history and is reborn as romance. And you, or rather the idea of you, are reborn with it. Playwrights and novelists, seeking a dash of drama, invent the character of the king's taster. He is dashing. He is brave. He is handsome, with a wry smile and nerves of steel. He stares death in the face with every bite, trading witty barbs with the queen while sampling a suspicious fig. He is a hero of loyalty and courage. Your miserable, terrified, anonymous life of chronic indigestion, alcoholism, and profound loneliness is meticulously stripped of all its truth and repackaged as a thrilling adventure. Your suffering is erased, your reality replaced with a comfortable, entertaining lie. And this becomes your final, ironic legacy. The truth of a life lived is brutal and indigestible, so society creates a story it can swallow. We consume the past like a feast, carefully trimming away the gristle and bone, the rot, and the filth until all that remains is a sweet, palatable myth. A story that is far more nourishing than the truth ever was.